So before we dive in tonight, I want to talk about last week. Last week we talked about the first part of Colossians 1 and, deepening our relationship with Christ. I got to thinking about it a little bit throughout the week, more time of spending with Christ, and thinking about how I parent my children. It made me think of a quote that I say quite often to Abigail. The twins are getting very close to starting to hear this a lot. Trust is a two-way street. So a question for that is, should a relationship be? Should it just be a one-way street, where you give everything to them and you just bend over backwards and they don't ever do anything for you? Or should it be two-way street, just like trust is? Should it be that you're having open communication, that you're showing up for each other? See, but here's another question, is, did you take the first step? I know with my kids, I kind of had to, or they want to be here. But I show up with love for them. They may not agree with every way that I show up with love for them through disciplining, but also there's fun moments, joyous moments that I get to spend with them. That brings me to Christ. Christ showed up first. We can see that in Colossians here. If we want to look at verses 13 and 14. He has rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. In him we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Right there, just 2 verses and you've summarized most of the gospel. But taken into context of what we talked about last week of the things that we need to be doing and how we need to be showing up to deepen our relationship with Christ, that's one side of the road that we talked about. Now, what's the other side? And in a relationship, can you reflect on how the person showed up for you, and that makes your friendship stronger, your emotional attachment to them stronger? I feel like it does. Knowing that my grandparents are there or give me a call on my birthday, that gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're still reaching out, that they're still caring. And I can remember or look back on those moments and have those feelings. So it's not just a singular, just see it one time and okay, that emotion's gone. Well, can we reflect on that and see how the Lord showed up for us? Can we see how God has saved us and how it impacted our relationship with him? How should we do that? I think we can find that in Colossians. And I think we can do that by firstly understanding that our relationship with God is deepened when we realize he came in person to show us how deeply he cared for us. Let's go back to the Bible here and let's look at Colossians 1, starting at 13 again. He has rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. In him we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. So this is summarizing everything. But let's look a little bit deeper into it by continuing. He, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Let's pause right there, though. Firstborn. Let's remember that this is wrote to the Colossians. It wasn't wrote to us. So we have to remember what's the context here. What's going on in their culture. Firstborn is Paul's way of trying to communicate to them the authority that the firstborn would have from the family, the heir to the household. That's what he's referencing here. That's what Jesus has. So if we continue, So Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For everything was created by him, God, in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and by him all things hold together. God came for us in person. He didn't send a friend. He didn't send a close relative. He came himself in person to have the relationship. Even though for years his people that he promised, the Israelites, sinned. They hurt him. And he became angry. Finally, he came as person. Jesus. You know, if you had a kid that was sick, and they were so sick that they were in the hospital, would you send your brother or sister to go for you? If you were that kid that was sick in the hospital, would you want your mom and dad there with you? Or would you want them to send someone say, hey, I came for your mom because she asked me to. She loves you. She cares for you. God didn't do that. And I don't think that's what any of us would do. As a matter of fact, I know some of us that have shown up because we've had a mother or father in the hospital, or because we've had someone dear to our heart that we are deeply in love with, that we show up in person for them. Why can looking at all of this matter? I mean, we've all heard the gospel. We've all heard, yes, who Jesus is, who God is. Here's my question. How familiar with this are you? Because here's the funny thing. Familiarity is the enemy of wonder. Can you remember when you first met your significant other? And you were in that puppy dog love phase, or the honeymoon phase, where you were just excited about everything? Because it was new, because it was something that you were learning together. Have you gotten over your honeymoon phase with Christ, and now it's familiar, and so you're forgetting those initial emotions of what it means in that relationship with Christ? You see, it wasn't just Jesus coming in person that I find so awe-striking for me, but that we can see that our relationships with him are strengthened when we understand Jesus demonstrated his limitless love by defeating death. And we can see that even before we knew that Jesus defeated death, even before Jesus came, God knew the price that was going to be paid. He made a covenant with Abraham. In Genesis 15, Abraham fell into a deep sleep, and God showed up as a fiery pot and walked through the blood by himself without Abraham. He made the covenant himself, saying, I know what this is going to cost, and I'm still doing it for you. Let's look at Colossians here on where we have that reminder from Paul. If we go to verse 18, he is also the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. Again, here's that first place, firstborn, the authority. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile everything to himself, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Again, our relationship with God is strengthened when we understand Jesus demonstrated his limitless love. no boundaries of his love, by defeating death itself to save us. It's like if you were out to sea. Could you imagine being lost? Somehow you fell off a ship, something like that. And finally someone saved you. But then they found you and go, I'm tired. I don't know if I can swim us back. Christ doesn't have that limit. He finds us and saves us and pulls us back in. How can knowing all of this help us with the struggles we go through? I mean, it's one thing to know it, but how does it change our perspective of when Monday comes? When we get our filling on Sunday, coming to church, praising God, worshiping, thanking Him, praising Him, being with brothers and sisters, and then Tuesday comes and we forget how full we were because we didn't do it daily. It means more by understanding what we talked about last week, by taking the step to deepen our relationship with Him, because He's already deepening it with us. You see, if you're struggling with depression and you're being told hope is dead, you're talking about having a relationship with a God who's already defeated death. He wants to take your depression. If you're talking about struggles with your anxiety and how you're just at the end of the rope of, being stuck. You're stuck in a dead end. Again, you're talking about a relationship with the God who came out and resurrected and broke out of a sealed tomb. You don't need to be stuck. He's defeated it. These are all hard things that we struggle with, but He's here for that relationship to help you through it. He cared so much, He sent His only Son. And as we see in verse 19, for God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him, Jesus. He knew what was coming. He knew the price. He knew the pain. He knew the suffering. And still, He was pleased. He was joyful to do it. Can you feel that emotion? That emotion that He's happy to do it for you? That understanding that, we can be strengthened when we understand Jesus demonstrated His limitless love by defeating death to save us. Now, that's not all. Our relationship with God is accessible to us because of reconciliation that only requires faith. And this shows us His breadth. This shows us His breadth of His love. We can see, if we go to verse 21 here, once you were alienated and hostile in your minds as expressed in your evil actions. But now He has reconciled you by His physical body through His death to the present, to present you holy, faultless, and blameless before Him. If indeed you remain grounded and steadfast in the faith, and are not shifted away from the hope of the gospel that you heard, this gospel has been proclaimed in all creation under heaven, and I, Paul, have become a servant of it. Let's reread the start of 23 here. If indeed you remain grounded and steadfast in faith. If, meaning you have to choose it. Meaning you are choosing to be faithful to God. Hearing His words and continuing on. It's like a family reunion. But the family's kind of messed up, and you've had people just walk away and not talk to you for years. And you have the two aunts that always bicker with each other and are always in a fight, but when they're in person, it's okay, but they're saying things under their breath. When you have cousins that have never gotten along, but yet the family reunion still invites everyone. All you have to do is accept the family reunion invitation and show up. Have faith in your family. Have faith. But what is faith? I view faith as trusting God, knowing that His plan of action, His course over all of this, is to save me from my sin. To know that, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on in this family, but I still choose you, and you tell me I need to be there. Being there for the family, but because I trust in you. This is where I can see our relationship with God is accessible to us because of reconciliation. That only requires faith. Showing us His love that He has. You see, some of the challenge that I want to bring to you today is, remember that family reunion? Now, let's imagine that we're standing on the outside. We're looking in through those windows. And we're just looking at the family because we're going, I don't know if I want to deal with that drama today. I don't know if I want to listen to someone talk about how this carpet was purchased in the 1980s and it's the best thing for this building. Or how we need to have a mirror by the front door. Or this person doesn't have convicting sermons. And you're standing there evaluating that. But then the next thing happens is the front door opens and the Father says, come in. I want you. I love you. That's Christ. He wants you in the family. He wants to remind you about the impact in the relationship He wants to have with you. So this answers our question of how should the way God has saved us impact our relationship with Him. Our relationship with God is deepened when we realize He came in person to have a relationship, on how deeply He cares for us. Our relationship with God is strengthened when we understand Jesus demonstrated His limitless love by defeating death itself to save us. And our relationship with God is accessible to us because reconciliation requires only faith, showing us the breadth of His love. So, after the Father comes out and says, child, I love you, please come in. Are you going to let Him transform you and say yes? Are you going to accept the invitation to the family reunion and show up for Him because you are deepening your relationship with Him and you're realizing how much He's done for you? Challenge you to say yes to God this week in a way that you've been skeptical and scared to do. Remember, He loves you and He wants to transform you.